Back here at Brew Burgers, an awesome family restaurant. I'm sure you guys are aware another family restaurant is gone. It's like, well, not gone, but a lot of them have closed.
The one on my street is?
Mine too. That's why it's like so devastating.
Mine's still open.
Is it? Well,
So
lucky
far,
you.
so good.
So is mine.
Rubbing it in, are we?
Yeah, and they have pumpkin pie ice cream.
We are talking about Friendly's, if you haven't caught on yet. Friendly's has filed for bankruptcy. And it's funny how you don't realize like such little, you know, places around town, how they actually have an impact in your life. You know, like it's an after school, you know, you go there after school or, you know, whatever. So it's kind of sad, and all the people who have lost their jobs because of it.
Sad.
Well,
So
it definitely, like you said, was like a family thing because literally I remember every half day after school, every half day, you know, it was like, oh, Friendly's, Friendly's, Friendly's. Friendly's was like, is like still, because we still have them around.
yeah, they're around.
They're still around, but Friendly's is still like that. Oh, after recital, let's go to Friendly's.
Basketball games.
Whatever games. Oh, let's go to Friendly's. No, literally, after like our basketball games and track meets, oh, we're gonna go to Friendly's because, you know, the kids' deals were like phenomenal, are phenomenal, you know, and it's just such a staple in my life. And I'm gonna be really corny for a second, but to have been able to have been able to share, I am beclimped, clearly, but to share a Friendly's experience that I grew up with my children is like a phenomenal experience
well, like,
for me.
My mom was a single mom and she didn't cook. So, and then she knew that. She passed away, but she's looking down, agreeing that she didn't cook. Our home cooked meals included scrambled eggs and soup on toast. Okay.
Soup on toast. But that's like chunky.
That's no. It was tomato soup on toast. We called it something I'm not allowed to say.
On toast?
Yeah, it was bad. Anyway, so we used to.
Interesting.
Hey, you know, you guys had real meals. I had soup on toast. But we went to Friendly's probably like 3 or 4 times a week, which may say why I'm a little chubby now. But it was like that was what I grew up on. I mean, you had your kids' meal and you had your little sundae and
ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a part of our. Anybody who's lived here, I mean, you moved into the area, so it's a little probably different. But if you grew up in this area, that was what you grew up.
I think it's any area though. There's Friendly's everywhere.
Well, actually, down to Virginia because we traveled.
No, but they've expanded. They've expanded through the years.
We didn't have Friendly's growing up, so Friendly's was a new thing to me when I came out here.
Yeah, they are on every block. They were on every block out here, so that is true.
I mean,
there's more of them.
Literally, like as a kid, that was. But I love Friendly's. I worked there for years and years. I think the problem was that they tried too hard to be something they weren't. Yeah. And I think now, like you'll see it with the High Five promotion they're running.
Which is funny.
Yeah, but they're trying to get back to their roots. You know, they used to be a burger and an ice cream shop. That was what they were. They had Awful Awfuls, which was what the Fribble used to be called. It was called an Awful Awful. And
a what?
An Awful Awful.
An Awful Awful?
An Awful Awful. Really? And then your waitress, if the old timers come in, they would still order an Awful Awful.
Wow,
and
that must have been before my time.
but they went to like all these fancy meals and fancy things. And they didn't need all that. They should have just
salads.
Been
they
burgers.
tried to do like the more lighter stuff too.
Yeah, they kind of mortgaged the farm and it didn't pay off.
So I wish them the best. It's not bankruptcy as in they cease to exist. It's a restructuring.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the Chapter 13.
Well, a lot of people lost their jobs. And with Obama's job bill, hopefully some people will be getting their jobs.
What is that?
Back.
Tell me.
My understanding of it is the idea is to tax the rich, basically, to provide more jobs. So I don't know all the ins and outs of it. Is anybody really familiar? Are you?
Yeah, a little bit. It's the idea. It's a restructuring of the tax code and saying that it's about time that people who make over a certain amount of money are taxed at a greater percentage. Warren Buffett says that as much money as he makes, his secretary has a higher tax bracket than he is, which is obscene.
It's obscene.
I mean, that's obscene. So I think the fear in this country is this kind of the socialist movement, because we've never really we've always celebrated the rich. And
it got voted down though last night. Is
in
that
the Senate,
or
it did not
a few nights ago? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be a real battle because Occupy Wall Street. I mean, that's a direct consequence.
Which is taking over across the country now. Actually,
the world
literally
is fascinated by this because this is not the Arab Spring in Egypt. This is the United States. And as much as the Republicans and the Tea Partiers want to say it's class warfare, it is driving towards a particular kind of revolution because people are really sick of billionaires holding the spigot and not opening it. You know, the billionaires want to say that they're job creators. Well, create some jobs. Do your job and create some jobs.
It's interesting because, to play devil's advocate for a second, my brother always describes himself to me as very fiscally conservative and socially liberal.
I know people like that.
And I believe that, knowing my lifestyle, and he's accepting of my lifestyle and such, that I believe that. But when I talk to him and the points he'll bring up, and I can't speak for him, but he'll bring up points along the lines of, if I earn the money, it's my money. Why do I then have to give away more of it to taxes because I've earned more? Like, you're being penalized for earning more.
But then you're being penalized for earning less. I mean, it's, you know, it's just kind of, yeah, great that you earn more, but you should be taxed appropriately on that money. We can't survive on the poor anymore. The entire economy has this huge, gigantic underclass, and you have these people with so much money. And I certainly don't consider myself a socialist by any stretch of the imagination. It just seems to me, at a given time in history, you have to make some radical changes because you can no longer, you can't bend, you're going to break.
Can't we just make more money?
No, we can't.
Actually, no, that's not going to work, actually.
It'd be a nice
Just
solution.
wondering.
Hey, I'd love to do it, but, you know.
And make some $1,000 bills.
I always used to say, like, you know, like, if you have 7 Lamborghinis, do you need 7, or could you get rid of 1 Lamborghini and have 6? You know, and I do,
because you can only drive one at a time.
but you need one for every day of the week, and you rest on Sunday.
As long as you have different colors.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, speaking of jobs, not to be light about it, but Steve Jobs passed recently. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is what's going to happen to Apple? What's going to happen to, because they come out with something new all the time.
This is devastating.
It is devastating.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Somebody recently said, "Oh, it's Steve Jobs. It wasn't important." No, Steve
actually,
Jobs
it was
very important.
Very important.
But I think that Apple probably has enough bench strength in their technology sector and in their think tank that they will continue to be innovators. But I don't think they'll ever.
It's not going to be the same.
It's not going to be the same because his imprint is on there until the day he died, and it will change dramatically.
I mean, you would hope to think that because of his leadership, and his leadership seemed very, very solid, that he created an atmosphere that fostered people to be thinkers, to be innovators, to be creative, to think outside of the box, just to make things happen. So, I mean, I really do hope and believe that they'll continue to be innovative, but again, you know, just keep raising up more Steve Jobs. That's our responsibility, you know, to make sure that it's not just this one person. Although, I mean, I look at him and I think, wow, he thinks a lot of the same things that I think. You know, it's like, stop letting people define you. Go out and do what you need to do for yourself.
Really great quotes that that came out after.
The younger generation doesn't understand. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a professor at one of the local colleges, and she was saying the young kids don't get it. They never lived in the era where it was uncool to own a Mac. You remember when it wasn't cool? Like,
it was totally
you were like a geek if you had a Mac, and now it's like the cool thing, but those kids don't know it. They don't understand that they've lived on this earth with a technological Einstein, if you will.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
And speaking of speaking of the actual Macintosh, I remember I did some of my best term papers on Macintosh.
Yeah, in grad school with
That was awesome.
Yeah, I was on a typewriter because we were the poor kids.
Well, I had one of those too.
But you had a word processor.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing we have to remember at the end of the day. He was Steve Jobs, but he was also a 56-year-old man who died of cancer. And that is, I think what it shows is it doesn't matter how much money you have, what we talked about. It doesn't matter who you are, that whatever happens up there, whatever powers that be, don't discriminate. It can take anybody at any point. And I know that, isn't our next issue or current issue about cancer?
Yep, the current issue is a health issue when we touch upon cancer, and it's so important to just keep up with your regular checks and stay on top of your body, listen to your body, pay attention to your body. It's so important.
I lost my mom. She, in her 30s, had lung cancer, had a lung removed. In her later 30s, she had part of her brain taken out for cancer. Thought she had healed, and when she was 56, we found out that she had esophageal cancer that had eaten. Nobody knew. Nobody diagnosed it. We went to doctor after doctor. Hit a golf ball sized hole in her esophagus and passed away from esophageal cancer. So it affects everybody. And women mammograms, do that whole thing, Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Yeah.
So cancer, take care of
So
yourself.
with it being October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, take this time to start, if you haven't already, to start doing your monthly checks and taking care of your body. And we'll be back.